everyone here on this chilly day. And just invite anybody who's in visiting to introduce themselves and say who you are. And start off with Eric back there.
Eric Hardy, Buncombe County.
Jeff Bradford, Sports Commission.
Jody Stevens, Explore Asheville.
Sarah Kilgore, Explore Asheville.
Elizabeth White, Explore Asheville.
Kat Kessler, Explore Asheville.
Holden Mask, Sunshine Request.
Lou Blywise, Asheville Regional Airport.
I'm Jason Sanford with AshVegas.com.
And I'm Jane Anderson with the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association here.
I want to thank Holden and Patrick and their whole Sunshine Request gang for going to that level of effort to record, our meeting and some of the other meetings around from the, Buncombe County and the city, different staff meetings and that sort of stuff. So I think it's important stuff for anybody who wants to remain informed. And so, live from the CBB Wednesday morning. So, and I want to welcome Don Warren, who's the new CFO at Buncombe County. Try and convince him that it's going to be 60 degrees later this week, and this is not the norm. But
yeah, you all lied to me.
So we'll start off with. I'd like to have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll start off with the financial reports from Autumn.
Good morning. So we'll start on the operating fund, page 1, budget and actual report. And you'll see on this page that revenue totaled $1.7 million for the month of October. And revenues were $1.7 million, expenditures were $692,000 for the month. 30.6% of the budgeted occupancy tax revenue has been collected for FY19, and 11.5% of budgeted expenditures have been spent as of the end of October.
Autumn, would you mind speaking up a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm still on page 1.
We're still on page 1, so looking at the current month actual column, the revenues were at $1.7 million. Expenditures for October were $692,000. So percentage-wise, you've received 30.6% of your budgeted occupancy tax revenue, and you have spent 11.5% of budgeted expenditures at the end of October.
Let me just say that. I talk about this a lot, but it just seems like we can get our monthly budgets more aligned with the actual. It's
Right,
hard.
we budget for media expenses in the month that doesn't happen, and then the billing hits after, later. So that's what causes that, that difference.
And so
We do anticipate with the workday system that we would have the ability to encumber money under contract at some point, and we have not had that opportunity to do that yet. So that's something that I think will help the financial statements more accurately reflect what's already been promised to be spent.
So we can accrue expenses as they occur. You can imagine if that were to fall over into the next year, it would be a disaster.
So looking at the year-to-date actuals, you can see that year-to-date revenues have exceeded expenditures by $3.5 million, and year-to-date occupancy tax revenue is up 10.4% from the same time last year. So we can move on to page 2. So the revenue we report in October is related to sales in September. And you can see in the first couple of columns that September sales are actually up 8% from the same time last year. to page 3.
I think our pace has been pretty steady. Yeah, overall.
Stephanie, I think it's probably hard to hear just about anybody in here, and I'm thinking, picking up the white noise back here, maybe from the
Heating air conditioning.
yeah, from the heating. So we may have to do some
But just
mics. You may have to mic the place a little bit with this.
Let's all speak up so we can save our money.
Well, we're not going to get it younger, so so that's probably our best bet.
We will all project as best we can.
Yeah. Good suggestion.
Okay, so on page 3, we have the monthly product development fund summary. I just want to note that this does not include the new projects that were awarded during the last board meeting yet. You will see a formal project ordinance come before you at your next meeting to formalize the budget, and then those will be part of the statement at that point. So currently, this is reflecting $16.9 million committed to projects and $331,000 committed to administrative expenditures for the fund. Okay. Moving on to page 4. This sheet shows you the balance sheet for the operating fund and the product development fund. So this is a snapshot of total assets, total liabilities, and fund balance at October 31st.
I have a question on this page. The 7.4 million unassigned, what is that? Down at the very bottom under fund balance, the last line under fund balance. What?
That's we've been talking about that a lot. It's a it's fairly misleading number because it not only includes revenue that was available year end unspent that would be what would be typically considered a reserve balance, but it also is where operating reserves or operating surpluses are being carried. So money that is budgeted, that is unspent, drops to that line. Revenue that is surplus to the budget is carried in that line. So Don and I have been talking about a way to make that more clear what's available to the board. We're at about $5 million year end reserves. That's not a big number for an operating budget of this size. The board made a decision a couple of years ago that we should try to enhance the fund balance to meet known upcoming needs, such as a change in potential retainer for the new ad agency, new creative, website redesign, investment in new markets as opportunities come. So to have $5 million in kind of what I would consider an available opportunity fund for the board is actually not, is modest. And has been planned for a few years to meet these needs that are anticipated in the coming couple of years.
So the remaining pages, 5 through 8, those are going to show comparative tables of sales data for each month, so room sales. Page 5 has a very nice visual. You can see room sales are trending well above the prior year and the 3-year average for room sales. And the following page just gives you a breakdown of room sales by category. So you can see the breakdown for each month by hotel, motel, vacation rentals, and bed and breakfast. Okay. Page 7 provides a history of the room sales data. And you can see 2019 room sales are exceeding prior years. The last page provides further information on room sales by the category, so you can see the breakdown from hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, and vacation rental. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
No questions. Can I have a motion to accept the budget?
I have a question actually, sorry.
Okay.
On page 8, is this, is short-term, are short-term rental and vacation rental all together now? Is that new,
Mhm.
or is that, have we been doing it?
We changed at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And some of the bed and breakfast may fall into vacation rental now if it's sold for VRBO, is that right?
Right, and so the short-term rental and vacation rentals were combined because there's so much switching based on distribution channel, and it's kind of impossible to differentiate them. I'm not sure how much bed and breakfast activity is happening on.
There's a couple of places that try to, if they've got an outline cottage, they may put that on there, and a couple of people have tinkered with it, but to a large extent, there's very minimal.
Any other questions about the financials?
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the financials?
I'll make a motion.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And, any question on resolution?
We haven't done anything.
So, President's report.
Oh, sorry, I'm misguiding Jim. We have a budget resolution behind tab 2, and so this is just to move money from our contingency line item into sports sponsorships. It's $15,000 that will be used to facilitate the Fed Cup being in Asheville again. For those of you who missed that announcement, Fed Cup will come back to Asheville. It's highly unusual for them to come to the same city 2 years in a row. My understanding is it's only happened once before, and like 12 or 15 years ago. So we couldn't be happier. When they were here last year, I think, thanks to the amazing work of the Sports Commission and a huge number of volunteers, their organizers were just so impressed with Asheville. One of them said to me, we need to make a video of how Asheville did this to show other host cities. So we're really looking forward to that. I think it's the 9th and 10th of February. Our sponsorship support includes $15,000 of cash, and so we need your authority to move that into sponsorship.
So can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Now.
Okay, thank you. We have some really great marketing content to get to today, so I'll just kind of touch on some highlights. So one thing that I wanted to bring your attention to, there's been a lot of kind of discussion in the media about the costs and benefits of tourism to the city. And the Tourism Development Authority is a public entity with a public purpose. To use occupancy tax revenues to attract visitors and their money and their spending to this community. So I've given each of you a fact sheet on spending and tax generation and employment that happens as a result of the investment of the occupancy tax into marketing and product development. So keep that handy. We had distributed that to our partner news list and all of our elected officials to have as an informational resource. Turning behind tab 3 to the dashboard, I think it's pretty easy to kind of see how we're doing. Hotel occupancy dipped just a little bit, but demand is strong. These are representing the September STAR report. The October one came out at the end of last week and showed that demand was up 4.6% in October. So probably not keeping up with supply quite to be even, but still some strong growth. Are there any questions about any of the dashboard numbers?
Something on the last page, the print and broadcast value and impressions. I don't know if I understand. For example, I understand September, your impressions are up 92% and the publicity value is up 478. But some of the other ones where the impressions are down significantly, but the value is up significantly.
Marla, do you want to?
Wait, can you guys tell us
What
where you are?
page, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, the
Last page of the dashboard.
Oh, thanks, from Barbara.
So, the publicity value is based on the size of the article, the type of the article. So for example, a New York Times piece may be valued much higher than, say, the Daily Reflector in North Carolina. And so the circulation, though, you could have a longer piece with a, high circulation, but you could also have a shorter piece in like a New York Times. So those numbers are going to change a lot. I wanted to, kind of anticipating these questions, the one thing I wanted to let you know is the cyclical nature of PR as well. So if we get some really big hits in the previous year, which we did last year, for this month and for the year, those will continue to carry over. You're going to see those numbers trend for the most part in a negative value year to date, unless we get something like equally very strong. We had a couple of huge big hits in September last year. Everything from TripAdvisor to Huffington Post to Bravo Online to USA Today. Some really big hits that we just didn't see in September of this year. So there's a cyclical nature of PR and then ebb and flow that will always impact these numbers. I do want to take a moment and point out the media touch points. We have a new assistant who is wonderful, and we love her, but she's still kind of getting used to the way we do things. And she did not realize that a significant fall media outreach that we did earlier this year with B-roll should have been counted in these media touch points. And she also didn't have the touch points and connections that Dodie meant when she was at the Society of American Travel Writers Marketplace earlier this year. So I got that hot flash this morning.
Okay.
So at any rate, these numbers will be updated for the next go around. You will not see that estimated impressions and value unless we get really big hits, which will contribute to the year to date number in future dashboards.
Yeah, PR is just so tricky too. I encourage you to really focus more on the overall volume than fluctuations year to date, because we'll fluctuate from 8 billion for each one year to 6 billion another year, and 6 billion is less than 8 billion, but it's still a lot. So, thank you for that question. Any other questions on the dashboard? No? Okay. Well, I encourage you to read the recap. There was so much activity in the last month in the recap that it was difficult to even pull stuff to the top to summarize it. So I encourage you to take a few minutes to glance through the recap. And as always, let us know if you have any questions. Hearing no questions, please move.
Okay. Thank you. Marla, we got the marketing update?
I'm going to call my team up. We just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of some of the activities that we have undertaken over the course of the last few months. I want to congratulate my team for so admirably checking in with each other to color coordinate today. Good job. At any rate, what I'm going to do is go ahead and give you a quick overview, top line information, and then we'll go ahead and turn it over to the team. Just wanted to start by talking a little bit. You indicated last year at the end of the year that we would be undertaking this year. I know you haven't heard a lot about it, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to share where we're at with this. I know some of you have been part of some of the training we've done. And we're really excited now that we've gotten this off the ground about the initial successes. As I indicated last year in the strategic planning retreat, it's really important that we are represented well in the Google ecosystem, that our brand, our Asheville destination brand, is represented. And you'll recall that I showed a few case studies where that wasn't the case. So the knowledge panel, which is kind of the heart of Google, is used for not only the search engine results, but it's also used in some of their travel apps. And Google is getting into travel in much more significant ways. And that's why it's really important for us to undertake this project. One of the first steps we did was get verification, certified trusted verification access. So this allows us to do a little bit more within our own knowledge panel. It also allows us to assist our partners by doing on-the-spot in-person verification for them. So we've been kind of undertaking that. We've already had a couple of partners that we've helped them through that who have not been verified, but we help them through that process. And it also allows us, there are some odd knowledge panels scattered through the Google ecosystem that are related to us, but are not really kind of claimable by an organization. And so it allows us to go in and make that claim and keep that information up to date to ensure that the information is correct, to ensure the imagery is there. And so this was an important first step for us. So you can see how this works out. Our knowledge panel, I should have given you a comparable, but you'll recall that the imagery, when we talked about this in the strategic planning retreat, that the imagery for our knowledge panel was not necessarily on brand for us. We've been able to work that a little bit. There are some things that Google will let you do, and there are some things that are off limits that Google manages itself, but that you can suggest and edit. And so we've been doing, undertaking those activities to suggest edits, not only for our own knowledge panel, but in other areas where we see mistakes or image challenges. And then Google also released this summer an opportunity to be able to post within your knowledge panel. And so Elizabeth's been doing a good job of taking our content and posting that. And so it appears at the bottom of the knowledge panel. When you click on it, it goes to a larger representation of that. When you click on the blue links, it goes back to our website. So this is a great opportunity for us to get more traffic, and it's right there when somebody searches it. So the other big piece of this effort was to do content capture. Basically assure that we have a lot of imagery, not only for ourselves, but to help represent partners' knowledge panels as well. So we've captured about 200 images thus far, or we captured a little bit more than that. We have about 200 that are up there and, on the Google ecosphere, and that's generated almost 400,000 impressions so far from that new imagery. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important that local businesses are taking advantage of this too, because collectively we all represent brand Asheville. So we've been working through this with our partners. We've done a number of different webinars and in-house training here. We brought Miles Media, who is our partner in this effort, in to do training. And I think we've had about 75 or so partners who have engaged with us at this point. So this is going well. We will have a mid-year update around January from Miles, and so that information will be forthcoming. I want to do a real quick recap on the Summer of Glass. Summer of Glass, you'll recall, was from May to October, so we've just kind of collected the final results on that. It was a collaboration with Biltmore and a number of different artists, studios, and others interested in glass and representing glass in our community. We were the convener of that group, but then we also built out the Summer of Glass website, which ultimately received about 65,000 page views. And then we also used the information from that and connected back to that site via our social posts. And the social posts on Facebook reached about 700,000, so almost 750,000 people. Dodie and her team on the PR side also did some work around this. They sent out a release through PR Newswire, which, according to PR Newswire, garnered a potential audience of 15 million. And what that means is when PR Newswire distributes it, they distribute it out through media channels, but it's also on the web as well. And so as those media channels pick it up in their news feed, it's also securing additional eyeballs. And then the media can also actually pick it up and use it for stories as well. And so we got a couple of really nice hits. The biggest was this travel and leisure piece on the left. Which
Travel
was
Channel.
really, I'm sorry, Travel Channel piece on the left. Thank you, Dodie. And we got a couple of other nice hits as well. I'm going to do a real quick top line of the Harvest and Fall campaign, and then I'm going to turn it over to the team to talk a little bit about the other initiatives around fall, and then Sarah will wrap up with the holiday campaign. So we talked about this back at the end of August. We had a nearly $4 million budget for Harvest and Fall. Most of that went into Harvest. We call Harvest that late summertime period. So we are trying to generate interest in August and September, serve as a precursor for Fall. And then this year we put some additional monies in the fall foliage season. It used to be that we did not have to really do a lot around fall foliage because we would fill up on the weekends, but we all know with the added inventory, we have a little bit more room for growth during that time period. So the flight ran in total from the very end of July, essentially the 1st of August through about mid-October. It included all of our typical tactics. We used broadcast, we used national cable again as we did in the spring, radio, print, digital, and you'll see some of the integrated partnerships that we talked about, primarily the National Geographic one, which Sarah will touch on. And so you can see here's kind of how the impressions played out. We had, about 750,000 video views, 65 million impressions in digital, and then we also had the traditional broadcast, the content partnership with Atlas Obscura and a print of 6.2. The flight, as I mentioned, for television was in 14 different markets. It ran from August to the very beginning of October. There was a little bit of wiggle because of the hurricane. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the creative. We kind of left funny thing and went into a somewhat little more modern approach. Still using beautiful imagery and capturing that discover moment. And then, as I said, we switched to fall mid-September, using mostly digital. So here's a sample of some of our digital banners, which I think we shared back in August. And what you haven't seen is when we do these campaigns, we don't send them directly to the front of the website. We do a campaign landing page. And so you can see for the earlier time period, that August-September time period, we drove to a Harvest landing page. That was a little bit more general, and then we switched to a fall landing page, which was very specific. The idea is that the creative mirrors up with the landing page, and so creates some synchronicity between the campaign and where the consumer lands when they click through. All told, we had 109 million impressions, 246,000 clicks, and a little over 132,000 web visits resulting from the campaign. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kat and Dodie to talk a little bit about fall. Elizabeth's going to share some interactive pieces, and then Sarah will finalize this with the results from the National Geo and the holiday campaign.
Marla, really quick question.
Yes.
For anybody who may have missed business tips and best practices, is there access at all to the information that was shared, maybe a PowerPoint or something?
Yes, we have that. Kat can finish up with that.
So as you can imagine, fall is a very content-rich season for us, especially with the visuals. This was a bit of an unusual fall season, as I'm sure you were aware. The trees decided to do their thing a little bit later than usual this year, but that didn't keep us from continuing several of our more successful efforts from the past and also incorporating a couple of new things. One thing that we've done for several years now is a weekly fall color report. These are put out each Thursday during the fall foliage season, and they direct people to where the color is likely to be brightest, as well as some sort of top events and happenings that are taking place in that upcoming week. It allows us to showcase some really great photography taken by our content specialist, Jason Tarr. And this report in particular received 72,000 page views over about an 8-week period. And our fall content overall was up 25% year over year. In addition to distributing this report on the web and in our social media channels, we also send it out by email. So we have a specific segment of our email subscriber list. It's about 14,000 folks who are highly engaged, and they receive this color report each week throughout the season. This email this year had an average open rate of 37%, which is well above the industry average of 14%. So as I mentioned, these are highly engaged folks that want this information. Whether they're planning a trip or not, I think some of them really just like to look at the pretty pictures, but we'll take their web traffic too. Another thing we implemented for the second time this year was the use of user-generated content, or what we refer to as our fan photos. We utilize a platform called CrowdRiff to display photos from Instagram and Facebook in galleries on our page. We curated about 104 photos this year. We saw a 92% engagement rate with that content. That's people who are viewing, clicking to expand, clicking for more information on those photos. This allows us to give an additional layer of authenticity. I think sometimes when people see fall foliage pictures from us, they might be a little bit suspicious. Did we oversaturate that picture? Did we find the one red tree? But when we post them from quote unquote real people, then it adds an extra layer of authenticity. It also allows us to cover more territory. We have a single content specialist on staff who can only be in so many places during the week. So this allows us to cover a slightly broader area of the destination through other folks' cameras. One thing that was new this year that we're really excited about is an interactive fall color map, and that was designed by our web manager, Elizabeth White, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this, the new interactive fall color map that we developed this year turned out to be very well received by our visitors. It's seen 25,000 page views year to date, even though we didn't begin to promote it until, I believe, first or second week of October because of the delay in the fall color this season. Quickly show you a little interactive version of the demo. So this is the page here. What we've done is color-coded the region's map by elevation. So what we'll be able to do in future years is adjust the date range based on the current conditions of the year. And what we're also doing is calling out the locations that would be good to check out that week. The map's interactive, so you can zoom into the portion of the map that you're interested in, the week that you're thinking of coming, and then based on Jason, who's kind of out in the field monitoring where the best places to find the fall color this week, we can update our weekly recommendations for those weeks. So I encourage you to check it out.
And the research that we did prior to putting this map together showed that fall foliage map keywords have a high search volume. So we expect this page to see some good traffic even throughout the year and leading up to next season. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I actually found someone who calculated that a video is worth 1.8 million words. Very specific. But one of the things that we do each year is we do take some video content of the fall foliage. We try to do this at a time where it's bright in places, but there's also plenty of green, making sure that people know that there's still plenty of time to plan their trip, to come up and see the color during the season. So I'm going to give you a quick preview, and then we'll tell you how it did. But that makes me want to go to the mountains and fall. This was the shorter social media version of the video, and this piece reached about 74,000 users on our social media channels. We also did a longer version of this that we sent out to 84 different news outlets across the region, and a few national ones as well. And that was just one small part of the PR efforts that the media relations team undertook during the season. I'm going to let Jody tell you about the rest of it.
Stand moment. Yeah, and I know that you've all, many of you have heard us talk before about the importance of fall. From a seasonal standpoint, it is the closest thing that we have to hard news. And so the efforts that we put into promoting the fall season and national during the fall season has branding implications that support us year-round as a destination. So a little bit about the strategy behind that. So we try to combine leveraging that kind of perennial excitement over like, what's the fall color going to do? What are the leaves going to do? And we roll in lots of Asheville news, what's new in the destination. It's a significant effort to pull that from across our spectrum of partners and work with the content team to get that up and across our owned and then earned channels. So one of the ways that we earn that coverage is through the press release, and this particular press release was our most successful fall press release to date, since we've had the tracking mechanisms through PR Newswire. It was picked up 299 times with a potential audience of 82.8 million. And some of that initial pickup that we got landed us on Yahoo Finance, which has a huge reach, TripAdvisor, and Budget Travel. Landis also had a stellar media tour planned. We do a drive market media tour every fall to destinations throughout the region. Every other year, it is squarely along I-40. And on that I-40 tour, we bring a cadre of partners with news related to the season with us. So she had 7 partners scheduled to go with her and a slate of appointments set up. And then Jim Cantori set his sights on North Carolina, Florence. And so really the marketing team had to just completely switch gears. And for a little over a week, I would say, we were in full crisis response and preparedness mode with relation to Florence's track. As you all remember, Asheville was squarely in the cone of probability in terms of the track, and so national news had us, in that discussion in terms of impacts as the storm moved inland. So some of the things that we did as we kind of transitioned during this very busy time into crisis communication, we paused all of our digital and TV advertising on a national level. Also, we're getting a lot of outreach from local media, questions from national media, and so there was a response level there. We also were, one of the critical strategic pieces for us was the Explore Asheville Alerts page, and that was the hub that we created for information that was not only supporting evacuees who were coming into the area, but also a communications piece for our visitors who were wondering whether they needed to travel, to change their travel plans, and then also supporting our partners, and specifically our lodging partners who had that fluctuating occupancy happening before and then after the storm. And then constantly updating our visitor center teammates as well. So one of the part of the messaging strategy behind that, we were walking a very careful line, particularly after the storm. We wanted to, of course, we needed to be sensitive and respectful for our neighbors across the state who were still in crisis. But then we also had, we had that duty to our visitors to let them, and our partners, to let them know that Asheville was open for business. And so kudos to Kat and Jason on the social team for their efforts there. I feel like they walked that line really, really well. And just to kind of show you, no matter how carefully you walk that line between communicating the reality and respecting your neighbors, that there's still a little bit of management that goes on in the public forum. So this is kind of, it shows how this played out. For one post, we had the response, so you want to cash in on their misery by touting your sunshine and luck. Love Asheville, but don't like this ad. And then in the same thread, the next comment is, "Hi, Susan," responding back. "I, on the other hand, am thankful you posted this video and update. We have a girls' trip planned to fly into Asheville on the 26th, and we have been going back and forth about whether we should do the trip or not. I've been searching daily for updates, and we have until the 21st to cancel. We've already bought our Chihuly and Biltmore tickets and have our flights. From this post, it sounds like Asheville's open for business, and we are good to go. Thank you." So that's the balance that we're trying to strike on the social channels. And then with all of these messages, we were driving through to that Explore Asheville alerts page, and on that alerts page, we were very clear in creating assets that would show access to Asheville and versus the impacted areas. In fact, we changed over that Explore Asheville alerts page at least 30 times during that stretch of time. And so here are some of the results from the national outreach and response related to the storm. We were able to provide some information to USA Today. That budget travel piece that we earned through the initial press release, we were able to go work with them to change the messaging to make sure that people knew that Asheville was okay for business. And then we did it all again in terms of the fall media tour planning. So we took the press release, after impacts had passed, and we reworked it to let everybody know we were going for fall color, sent that back out, and Landis planned a round 2 of the media tour, changing our markets a bit to areas that weren't affected. And we sent her solo on that tour intentionally so that she would have time to address any concerns about any impacts on the region, while then still having enough time to talk about, the season ahead and the year ahead, and sow those story seeds. And so here's some of the highlights from the efforts this year. Clips in TripAdvisor and Forbes, and a total of 190 million impressions. So far, we're still collecting those figures for our fall coverage. And then I wanted to show you, we've had a lot of irons in the fire in terms of media relations lately, and I just wanted to show you a few of kind of our high-touch media clips real briefly here. We have been working on, for a while, on changing the conversation about Asheville in winter and really showcasing the destination as a cozy, romantic, active destination in the winter season. Our winter clips are, from over the years, are very few and far between. And so this is a huge milestone for us from a PR standpoint, and that USA Today featured us in a roundup of cozy winter destinations for 2019, and with a 36 million reach on that.
I just want to also point out that Debbie and her team always have one foot in the current season, dealing with whoever is coming into town and doing kind of some pitching around that season, but they always have the other foot firmly planted in a season or two ahead, because they have to get the information out.
Yeah.
And the reality is, on the winter, we started talking about this last year when we kind of settled on this theme of cozy winter. And they started kind of thinking about how that would play out this year. And so there was really a year of thoughtfulness that went into, what kind of images we need, what kind of assets, what are the stories that we need to tell to give this some oomph.
And we did a lot of research using our TrendKite platform to understand when those stories hit. And so that was important, and actually a really big challenge for us this year with the way that fall played out, in terms of making sure that information was in the right hands, kind of in a season that's also critical for us. So it was a challenge, and so also super, doubly sweet that we got such an amazing clip. More to come. And so this one's a great example of how the team takes an initial contact and then expands it. This started out as an intern reaching out for some event information, and through the the coaxing and relationship and sharing of our team, it was expanded into a full feature of Asheville news that included places to stay, eat, what to do. This one in mind started out as a room request, somebody asking for a media rate. The team brought them in, pitched them some ideas, and evolved that story into an immersive site visit that we had our hands on many pieces and parts of their experience here, including sending them on the ASAP farm tour, and it turned into a story about Appalachian food and trending in Asheville as a mecca for that. This two nylon stories are a result of our efforts around bringing music journalists in for deep immersion. And this is an executive editor who came in, wanted to come in she had a particular show in mind. And so we had able to create an immersive experience for her that resulted in kind of a BOGO. We got 2 stories for that website. And then I also want to do a shout out to our efforts around meetings and conventions and group sales. Sarah Lowry on our team has been working with Carly in the groups department, and they have been scouring editorial calendars for opportunities to tell the story of Asheville as a meetings and group tour destination, and they've done a fantastic job of that. And so this is just in the near future and recent clips. They've crossed all of these publications. The reach is smaller than your big picture ones, but that's a group of highly engaged media and meeting planners. And so Asheville was named Best Emerging Destination by the National Tour Association. We'll take emerging as long as they're willing to give it to us.
We emerge, we fade back a little bit. So
And
that
we
can
emerge
emerge
again. It's like a phoenix.
Okay, so I know most people in this room are familiar with the fact that we had a National Geographic partnership this year. It was a brand elevation campaign, but it was anchored by our TV special that I know most of you are familiar with or have seen parts of. So this just shows a little bit about what was in the show. I know most of you know about it, but it shows a lot of the storytelling components, and it really covered a big picture about Asheville and who we are as a destination in an authentic way. But on top of this TV special, we had print and social elements and other digital elements that I don't think we've talked about much. Oh, sorry, I got confused on my next slide. So we have some mid-campaign reporting about the linear performance, which is really just the television pieces. So we had 33.4 million impressions. So that includes the actual premiere and encore airing, commercial elements, promotional elements on top of that, and then our regular brand spots that were running on the network throughout the campaign. So that's a pretty good number, but this is just, we're really at a mid-campaign point. So these numbers are through 10/28. So on the digital side, we had 33.3 million impressions. So that's our digital components, the social components, and the native social components on National Geographic social channels and on other digital networks. So in print, we had one ad in the October-November issue that was our brand ad, and then we had another added value 3rd-page ad that talked about the show coming up and promoted that within the magazine. So that got 10.4 million impressions. Holidays. So switching gears.
So can I just point out too, the reason why this is a midterm report on this is that the program is still on demand through the end of December. So it's still available out there and people can still watch it. So we're still collecting, and there's probably a little bit
There's
of
still
residual
digital
from the
elements going
digital
on
as well.
Yeah, they're running through the 15th of December. So for holiday this year, we took a little bit of a different approach based on some survey results we got from our subscriber base, which is a very engaged audience, which Kat kind of talked about a minute ago. We get great open rates, and they actually were very responsive to the survey. So what we were trying to find in the survey was, why do people come here for the holidays? What are they looking for? And what we found is that there's one group that really likes to come to see fall elements and a little bit of holiday, and there's another group that really is like full-blown like holiday extravaganza love. So what we did is we decided to break up our campaign into 2 like mini campaigns. So as you'll see, we had Fall-a-Day and Holiday. So Fall-a-Day, which we internally call the pumpkin spice latte season, that kind of gives you a visual in your mind of what that season is. It's the best of both seasons. So they're getting the fall magicalness and they're getting the holidays. So they get the best of both worlds. So that ran from the 22nd of October to the 19th of November. And then we transitioned to holidays on the 20th of November. So this was just a digital campaign. It was a $132,000 budget. And we also were calling holiday peppermint mocha. Or peppermint latte, I think. Yeah.
Is Starbucks cutting the check?
Yes, they're pitching in on this. So these are examples of the banners on the digital banners. So the Fall-a-Day, you'll see it has some imagery that shows like a waning fall, and then some holiday, and then the next one's like full-blown holiday plus, hikes in the season. These are some of our social components for each season. This is holiday, paid social, and then holiday paid social. We did some native only on the holiday season, just to promote some good little articles about what happens in the holidays. And then these are the landing pages for this campaign. We transitioned on the date the campaign transitioned to a new landing page, and you'll see on the holiday landing page, it's got Bill Moore with the Christmas tree and the fall color on the trees, which we thought was pretty amazing. We had that photo. And then also the next, on holiday, we transitioned to really Christmas center focus. So that's it.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a test. As Sarah said, the research showed that there were people who were coming in November who were equally excited about the fall color still being there for them to see, along with the capturing the holiday spirit. So we thought we'd tap into that and see if it resonated. And when we get the final results of this campaign, we'll kind of get a better understanding of that. So, any questions? Thank you, everyone.
Actually, I do have a question. So, to Joe's question, how do we just take a picture of a Starbucks cup and put it up there, or do we?
Starbucks really has nothing to do with it. I'm sorry. That's our internal way of picturing what the season is.
Okay, that wasn't part of the ad.
No, that was not in
That's
it.
serious.
No, sorry. That is like our internal way we're picturing it and making that kind of come to life in our minds, and then we're putting those images of Asheville that kind of represent that to us.
We kind of use that to hammer at home for you the difference of using a dual campaign in a similar way with Starbucks.
But no Starbucks ads or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
One quick reaction to all of that is, wow. So impressive. I mean, combination of things, both, the nimbleness of responding to fall foliage and hurricanes and all that sort of stuff, and the reach and the depth and the amount of work that you guys are doing is incredible. So, and I'm always left feeling there's more that I need to do to promote my business, or I'm sure all of us are feeling that way. You guys are amazing.
That's a beautiful thing. All of this does promote your
Yes.
business.
I don't have any exciting visuals in my presentation like that last time, so I brought
You
like.
start out this time.
So, I'm going to give you a wayfinding signage program update. So just to get us in the wayfinding frame of mind, a reminder that these are the signs, the directional signs that are throughout the county. They were initially installed in 2010. It consists of over 300 signs. These are vehicular, pedestrian, kiosks, and also garage signage. And so we installed those, and we actually, the BCTDA funds maintenance of them each year. So we contract with a company to come in, inspect each sign, they clean them, and then we are making those repairs and replacements as needed. So last year we embarked on a system-wide assessment. So we contracted with the vendor Verge, who is the design firm that initially designed it. And the purpose of this assessment was to reevaluate the system. It's been around for about 8 years now. We wanted to identify any new assets. There have been changes in our community. For instance, we no longer have a Pack Square cultural district. The Coburn Museum moved and changed its name to Asheville Museum of Science, things like that. So we knew there was a number of destination changes. And then we also wanted to see if there were any gaps in our signage to say, is the system working well as well as it was intended to. And so that's what we did this past fiscal year. And so where we're at right now is sort of reviewing the findings, the outcome of that, and we are ready to implement or move forward with implementing the sign changes, which I'll go through a few of those with you after this. But I wanted to let you know, so in this fiscal year, we want to make the implementation and primarily focusing on the downtown area this year. And in addition to that, we also are planning for all new development that's happening in the River Arts District. You know, the roads are being rerouted and all kinds of changes down there with new greenway and parks and whatnot. And we understand that we're going to need an inter-district signage program for that area. So this January, we're planning to hold a community input session. And we've been communicating with the arts community, and we're going to schedule that real soon. But we'll get their input on what they're looking for and what they think would work for them as well. And so we're looking forward to that. And then this is part of the 3-year plan. So next year we would envision moving forward with implementing the River Arts District signage that comes out of this input system, and then also sign to other things that are still in development. Which I will show you this too. So where we're at right now is looking at the assessment findings. So this is going to affect all of our sign types, so vehicular, pedestrian, kiosk signage. So some of the new assets, as I mentioned, the dissolution of Pack Square Cultural District. That's on a lot of signs downtown right now. So we want to update that and make sure this information is accurate. We have a new Ashland Museum of Science. The Wortham Center is changing its name from Diana Wortham Theater to the Wortham Center. We also are looking at a Tunnel Road Hospitality Corridor. And of course, the Bob Lewis Ballpark is a new asset as well. While we were looking at this, we asked Merge to do sort of a deep dive focus on our kiosks too. There's about 10 kiosks around downtown and other areas like Black Mountain, West Asheville, Weaverville.
Those are the 3 sided signs.
Biltmore Village, and those are exactly those 3 panel sides. And one panel sort of has narrative information, one panel has like a detailed map, the other panel has sort of a map to tell you where you are regionally. But we asked them to look at those, and they have made some recommendations, which we're really pleased with, to make those panels more useful. And so we plan on updating the maps, adding walk times, so people will have a better understanding of where they are in context with everything else that's on the map. And then we do want to add a new kiosk to the Eagle Market Street intersection because the block is under major redevelopment over there as well. Other new assets are parking signage needs. So we know there's a new garage on Cox Avenue, and so we're working with the county and identifying how to sign that so it's part of the wayfinding program. While the other downtown municipally owned garages do have this wayfinding garage signage, so we want to make that consistent. And then College Street Garage, this happened before my time, but I guess it was never fully integrated into the wayfinding system, and so it's an asset that does not get as much attention. And so we want to add a couple more signs around that as well, just to make that a little bit more useful for the community. I mentioned that there are future needs, so there are things that were revealed in the assessment that we're not ready to move forward with because, for instance, the River Arts District, that's still in development. South Slope area, we know the city's doing a lot of work down there. We're not sure where that gateway is going to be and whatnot, and so these areas seem to be premature, so we don't want to invest in signage at this time. Woodfin Blue Way project, that's also in development. Another thing, the U.S. Cellular Center is listed on a lot of signs, and we know that they are currently looking for a new sponsor. So U.S. Cellular Center may renew, or it may be that facility may change names. And that is, I believe, coming at the end of this fiscal year. So those things are sort of moving targets at this point. So we're not ready to do all the change recommendations at this time because of that. So just wanted to touch real quick. I'll hand it over to Glenn, who manages the annual maintenance.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, I have to highly highly coveted job of doing this. When I came on board 3 years ago, that was the one demand I had. I said, please give me that. Grudgingly gave that to me. This year we have a rather high year of maintenance, unfortunately. We're looking at around $90,000. Historically, we've been in the 45, 50 range. That's why we budgeted $50,000. But the maintenance this year, which I've broken into 2 primary categories, are physical issues, signs down, bases been hit, hardware's missing, things like that. And the other is bases that are fading. We've reached about the end of the lifespan, the warranty base on these sign faces, about 8 years. And so this is a year where Geograph has agreed to, because we're right at that edge, they say, well, really it should last longer than that. They're paying 50%. So that's why we went ahead and we identified every fading sign we could this year, because we're getting this 50% discount. So that came out to about 30 faces, and which would have been 16,000. So we're getting 50% cut. So we're going to be paying 8,000 this year. So it was worth the 8,000 to go ahead and get that out of the way. On the other side of the coin, on all the physical issues, we're looking at around 82,000 for replacing signs. We have 22 signs that have been hit by cars, that have been clipped by the car, which creates a problem. You know, the air bubbles getting behind them, they just kind of disintegrate. It's amazing. We've never had that many. We just had one last week hit by a car at the Merriman exit off 240 westbound. So that is one of the main reasons why we're really so high this year, or it is the main reason. We have the UNCA Broadway big double DDR6, that's our technical terms here, for the biggest sign, 6,600 to replace every year. It's a straightaway. Every year, someone hits those signs, one way or the other.
Where do they hit it at?
They hit it at the bottom corner of the sign, and
would you change the sign?
Well, there's a hill and there's DOT requirements for everything.
No, I mean, if they're hitting the
the
bottom
shape of
left,
the sign.
yeah.
It's the pole that gets hit.
Oh.
So
Oh,
then
the
it
pole-
just
the pole's
disintegrates. And that's a 2-pole sign. The sign, if you go to the airport, the ramps now go like this. The X change on the bridge. So we have a sign facing backwards now. You know, it's just every year there's always something. And then we have one new kiosk. The kiosk at Wall Street was hit and flattened, but the 3 panels survived. So that saved us $1,100 out of the $8,000. So anyway, I just wanted to touch base quickly to let you know it's a diverse group of issues and problems facing us, and that's why we are so much higher this year than in past.
Right.
Did people's insurance pay for that?
We always ask for that. For instance, the kiosk, it was flattened. I mean, and you know, it's crossing the arcade, right in the Grove Arcade, no witnesses. And the truck somehow drove away, even though it was sitting on it at one part of the video. Literally sitting on it at one point, somehow it pushed away,
Yeah, right.
drove off.
Video camera? I mean, isn't everything on video camera somewhere?
No, it's not that. We asked, worked with the city to try to identify that one, because it's an $8,000 cost. And most of them, and they're, you know, all these signs being hit, you would think there might be a police record on it, but they have breakaway bolts. That's a big safety issue. Everything just breaks away so easy and fast. The car is hardly damaged in many cases. And they take off. First they steal the video, then they take
With, you know, development where signs are removed, and then when they're replaced, they're not, you know, they're just planted instead of being put in footers with breakaway bolts, and it's really, like Len said, I mean, it's just a million different things.
Yes, that's true.
It's the TPDF gift that just keeps on
Pat
costing
had it
money.
before me, so.
It seems so simple when you first decide.
So this is where we're at with the budget request. For this fiscal year, we had planned on $160,000 in updates. That was our ballpark estimate. And basically, out of the findings of the assessment, we are up to $190,000. So we're asking for an additional $30,000 to complete all those signage updates. And that does include the garage signage, so that'll be really helpful for the community. The other part, the annual maintenance that Glenn mentioned, we had budgeted $50,000, which was sort of the standard amount that we've been averaging per year. And this year is higher because of the, drivers hitting it and materials expiring, lifespan materials expiring, et cetera. And so we're asking for an extra $40,000. So that would bring a total increase of $70,000 for wayfinding.
And where does that show up in the budget? What line?
It's in the TPDA budget.
Oh, it's in TPDA.
Yeah, the occupancy tax legislation provides for up to 10% to be used for administrative costs, so that applies equally to And when these signs were developed, there was interlocal agreement with the municipalities and the TDA to share in the cost of maintenance. And over the last several years, the TDA has taken over all of the responsibilities for those costs.
And the reality is too, when this project was originally conceived, this was very much something that Mayor Bellamy was interested in, and Sam Powers kind of started it by bringing a person who's an expert in signage to come in and talk to the community, and then we ended up incorporating this. So, we're dealing with this gift that keeps on giving.
So does anyone have any specific questions?
Are y'all gonna make the parking signs any either bigger or brighter? I know where the parking signs are, but if I didn't, I think it would be a little bit.
That is a complicated question because there's several different types of signs that go with parking decks.
We've looked at some recommendations to enhance the wayfinding to the decks, and decided that we would put that into a future phase because of changes that are happening downtown and the expense of being able to do that. And so with the significant expense of doing the updates to downtown this year, then similar kind of scope for River Arts District next year. I think there are some improvements that can be made not only to the parking garages but also to surface lots. But right now there's so much transition in the use of those lots and the development of the south slope that we're going to operate on.
I will say that there's been a material change that's happened since the sign came into play. So when the panels are produced now, they're more reflective, right? It's like
And their lifespan is longer.
So that makes them pop a little bit more. So all the new signage is with that material, and as we replace, they're also using the material as well.
Well, we had a good opportunity on the Cox garage. The elevator shaft is glass enclosed on the outside, so we're putting a window clean on the inside, so it's not hitting the weather, and it would be pretty large. The big P, circle with the P. So it should be really visible at the
If there are no other additional questions, just ask for motion to approve the additional request for $70,000. So moved. Second, Leah and John. Those in favor? Any opposed? Great. Thanks so much. You can see why you enjoy that so much.
You join me sometimes.
City Council update.
All right, a few things. So our new city manager starts on Monday. Debbie Campbell from Charlotte. Very excited to have her on board. She's going to be great. And I'm sure she will be scheduling meetings. She is going to be scheduling meetings. I hope there's already one on the calendar or coming. I'll make sure that happens. You might have heard on the radio last night or seen, we took the bold step of banning e-scooters last night, temporarily, I will say, so that we can figure out how to manage them. They're not legal anywhere right now on the streets or the sidewalks. So, and I just want to point out, because we are getting a little bit of criticism for this, that the only reason that we did this is because there was an extraordinarily bad actor in the company Bird that decided to just bomb our city, which is their business model, which I think is an important business model. But anyway.
Julie, I thought it was interesting. Last weekend, a week ago, I saw Birds on the handicap accessible walkways and, you know, and to appreciate how much more complicated it is than it seems when, you know, someone in a wheelchair might be prohibited from even crossing the street because there's something sitting there.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, they're reportedly, I tried to get, my husband and I were in Atlanta over the weekend, and we were on a greenway where there were some, and I tried to convince him that we should, for my own research purposes, we needed to try to drive one, and he would not allow that. So, but I think they're a lot of fun. I do think they're probably part of the transportation mix in the future. But again, we are where we are right now because Bird was a particularly bad actor. So just leave that there. We've also, so at our finance committee meeting yesterday, we made a decision around the soccer fields. We're getting a lot of questions about the soccer fields, so people may remember that they were significantly damaged in rains earlier this year, the spring storm, I guess, and City Council allocated about $875,000 to fix the soccer fields. We were hoping that there would be FEMA reimbursement of that. That is not going to happen. And then, I guess in the October storm, they got damaged even more, so that price tag has gone up to about maybe 2 or 3 million, which is about what it cost to build the field in the first place. And
This is East Asheville, right? Not Inca?
correct. Yeah, this is and so where council is on this pretty much is last night we continued to commit the $875,000. ABYSA has agreed to bring to help close the delta between the additional cost that is there due to the October storms. I can't remember if that was 100 or 200,000, but they're 200,000 that they're bringing to the table, and then the city's insurance we're hoping is going to kick in about 100. So and that work needs to start very quickly in order to make the fields available for the spring season. So I think that's moving forward, but just to let you know that the finance committee anyway, which is 3 of us, have said, that's it, we're done. No more city investment in these fields. If they flood again, somebody else is going to have to fix them. And we're in negotiations with ABYSA about that, about taking on responsibility for that, but we can't continue to invest almost, potentially even every year as our storms get more extreme, to continue to pay almost every year almost as much as it costs to build them in the first place. So, and I realized that there was a significant investment from TPDF in building those fields in the first place. But so that's probably not going to make a lot of people happy, but we just can't. We don't do that with anything else, so we just can't do that.
Julie, do you know if it was construction discussed at this point yet about how they would be reconstructed like the same way as before?
They're just going to get fixed. So it's the same. It's going to be the same system that we have now. And people may remember that there was a lot of debate about that before we rebuilt them the last time after the last major flooding event. So there's no conversation at this point about changing the construction of them, going to grass, going to turf, going to anything else. It's right now we're gonna fix what's there. Now, if ABYSA steps up and takes on maintenance of those fields going forward, then there may be options. But when we had that discussion the last time around, there were problems with every system, and the decision was made that the system that we have, the structure that we have, was the best for that location. It is obviously problematic, but obviously grass is problematic too, because you really can't play on it when it rains. So anyway, and then also yesterday we had we've been having this series of budget work sessions. Our budget work session yesterday was really just focused on revenue as opposed to our expenses and sort of the revenue challenges that the city faces in terms of our limited ability to raise additional revenue. We basically have 2 options: property taxes and fees and charges. But there are some other options out there that the city is starting to explore. I would say the two main ones are a food and beverage tax and then a transit tax. The quarter-cent sales tax for transit will obviously need to involve conversations with the county because you're the only ones authorized to put it on the ballot. And then the food and beverage tax has to be authorized by the legislature. So we authorize the staff to sort of start those discussions with our community partners, including the county, including AIR, including the lodging association, everybody that you would think we would really need to talk to generate support for those sorts of things. But we just the fact is we just don't have the revenue to do the things that we want to do, to build the things that the city wants us to build, and so we. And John was there yesterday. I don't know if you want to share anything from.
I thought it was a great report. The city spent a lot of time putting that together, and very balanced and so forth. A couple of things that got up, but a lot of some cities indicated, like I think with Miami Beach, the city gets 2% of the hotel tax direct, and our situation is a little different. But when you think about TBDA, we give 1.5 cents direct. Well, not direct, it's in the city and the county for the most part, and then some other groups. So I kind of got that out of it. And the other thing was really, when you talk about the restaurant tax, the average wage of the restaurant workers was like double the minimum wage, and the tip employees was approaching triple. Unbelievable. I had no idea. It was like really, when you compare to other like manufacturers and so forth, it's probably there or higher. So it's pretty significant. And I think also Kathy talked about like the tax, and it's really up for I think the restaurant people, which is not me, but it could be hurt some of the people, food security and so forth, who as it affects fast food restaurants and so forth. And idea of maybe taking a little bit of that and putting it towards agencies that do feeding and so forth, which I thought was a great idea. So, but I really don't have an opinion on the tax. It wouldn't affect me as much as it would some of the other people in town.
I also floated the idea, because of these concerns around the impact of the food and beverage tax on lower income people, floated the idea of splitting food from beverage and just having a beverage tax, and maybe, Leah, just having an alcoholic beverage tax. Don't know if that's if the legislature allows that, or if that's something that we could get the legislature to adopt. But that would address the food equity concerns.
I thought it was a great idea. It would obviously affect me too, but I thought that was a good idea to be done. It's not going to raise near as much money unless you go up higher.
You go up on the tax, right? Exactly.
But interesting idea that certainly would not affect the lower income folks. So
right. The other thing I asked is that we explore getting authorization from the legislature for just the city to do the quarter-cent sales tax for transit. I don't know how you guys feel about your ability for your voters to actually adopt a new sales tax, but I'm not particularly optimistic about that, particularly for transit, that I think most people would see as benefiting the city rather than the county.
You probably have.
So I don't want to just give up. So I think there may be some options to get that authorization just for the city. So we're exploring that as well.
Just to mention, live in Tampa, Hillsborough County just voted in I was surprised, like 2-1. People on a referendum voted a 1% transportation tax. I was really surprised. So sales tax is now 8%, so it's a lot of money. But they won't, and it's a larger city, obviously. They want public transportation, they want the light rail and all that kind of stuff. They got to have it.
Yeah. I think it would not even be. I don't think it would be a challenge at all for city voters to adopt that. I think that'd be an easy campaign, as opposed to a campaign in the county that would, I think, take a lot of resources that I don't know that anybody has. So that's where we're on that. I just also want to mention the occupancy tax was part of that presentation, and also Kathy had several slides on the benefits of tourism and that sort of thing. And then on the slide about the occupancy tax, there was a big banner across it that said, "We are not asking for an increase in the occupancy tax." So that has been announced to the world. So hopefully that just puts that issue to rest and maybe brings down the tension on that a little bit. I also just think it's fair to say that the numbers that are on this sheet that we have are they're very different than what the city is saying, and I just want to encourage, and I think this is happening, but I want to encourage us to have a dialogue about these and actually get to agreement on the numbers. We should be able to do that. I think it's very confusing for the public, for the city to be saying one thing and the TDA to be saying another, and it makes it look like there's a big fight when there shouldn't be, and there doesn't have to be. So hopefully we can figure those out. But
I think, Julie, just to kind of expound on that, I don't really think the numbers are in conflict. The city is talking about the amount of revenue the city receives from lodging properties, which is nobody is refuting, is $3.25 million. In the numbers that we're presenting, we're just pointing out a bigger picture that millions of overnight visitors come to the community and spend $2 billion with lots of local businesses, and there are flows to that money.
Sure. And
that the TDA is a Buncombe County level organization, and those impacts are county level. So the numbers that we're distributing are produced by Tourism Economics, which is a division of Oxford Economics. It's the most well-respected resource for this kind of analysis, and we've been doing these studies now for several years. So I would just encourage for the public to not see them as in conflict, but just from a different point of view, and one is broader in scope than another.
Right, and I think, but my point is that's not clear. What it looks like is the city saying 3.2 and TDA saying something else, and they are. I recognize that they may be measuring. They are measuring different things. So I'm going to have the same conversation with Kathy, but if we can figure out what the appropriate number is, or if both numbers are the appropriate number, then we're just clear about what those are. And I'll also be curious to know how that company actually pulls out the sales tax data, because the state doesn't differentiate sales tax between
We've
the
actually
cities.
had a meet. We brought Adam Sachs, who's the principal economist and the president of that company, came to Asheville a couple of years ago and met with city staff on this topic.
Okay, that's great.
I would just add one more thing, and a lot of it I think is between the city and the county, and I know you're folks in the city and the county, but our property taxes for our hotels are huge, and they sort of like 3 different blocks, 3 properties. They'll pay over 1.2 million a year in property taxes. Now, that's what we're paying. That's not counting all the sales tax that comes back as well. And so that's, from my perspective, that's what I feel. How much the county gets and how much the city gets is nothing I can control. That is a lot of money that's coming out of hotels, and every new hotel that comes in, you're talking about a lot of tax. It's big numbers.
Yeah.
And the city, the city's in the county, and so the county funds a tremendous amount of dollars into the city for buildings and garages, and so we do look at it. We do work together, but there are some things that we can't fund. By statute, you have to fund those, and they have to work through that. So we do have some conversations. But your property tax went down a penny last year, so.
Good, thank you.
I think if I had to summarize Kathy's presentation yesterday about revenue, it's that even in the best boom time, which you could argue that we're in right now, essentially there's about $1.2 million a year that the city, additional revenue that the city has to play with, and that's just not very much. I mean, there's more coming in, but if you address raises and cost of living and inflation and all of these things, there's just not that much left at the end of the day, and it's not enough to do major projects that we want to do. So, okay, I think that's it for me. Any questions?
Thank you. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
It is complicated.
It is complicated, trying to balance the revenue and the expenses, and government is very complicated. So, it's a couple of things. It's good to see Don here, and we welcome him. We're excited about his role with the county. So the last meeting, we approved moving forward with the East Asheville Library. We approved the design. It had went up a little bit, but we all agreed that we needed to move forward with it now because it was not going to get any cheaper, and we were able to do that. We also approved a new procurement manual, and which dealt with everything from, it was 48 pages, dealt with everything from a lost receipt to how the county funds, everything from the cards to what we vote on. And now, it's very strict I'd say it's very strict in what we do. We are involved more at the higher level. So anything over $90,000 has to come to the commission, and we have to vote on it. Anything over $90,000. We don't believe that'll slow down anything. The intent is not to slow down anything. The intent is to increase the exposure and the accountability to contractors and other things at that level. But I was very pleased with it. There was a lot of work went into it. We adopted it by resolution, which means that if anything is changed in that, it has to be changed by a vote. So it cannot be changed by somebody deciding the management it's a great idea to do, and nobody knows about it. So, and all of these major decisions are being done by resolution. We did some additional things to the personnel policy. Let's see. We approved, it's about $7 million in improvements at the school capital commission, which that is paid for by sales tax. And so none of that doesn't affect the property tax at all. And that's through the city and the county, so that's countywide. There's some improvements to Hall Creek and some improvements to some a lot of other schools. It was a good list. We're about 2 months away from finding a county manager, and George's interim is doing a good job. One of the things I like about George is that he's not only establishing new policies, but he's establishing the way we're doing that. And if you come to a meeting now and you see the level of involvement of the county manager in the meeting, and the questions back and forth and information, I think you'd be very pleased. I believe that's all we got. When's our next meeting?
It is the 19th?
When?
December 19th?
December 19th, and the Explore Asheville Holiday Party is next Thursday. I hope you can all come. It's at the Renaissance Hotel again this year with generous support from U.S. Foods and Biltmore and Grove Park Inn and the Brewers Company, Asheville Brewing Company. So
Fun to be had by all.
yes, I'm sure you're dying to know who this new superstar award's going to.
Sorry, one more thing. This is, people still think this isn't actually going to happen, but it actually is going to happen. The I-26 connector project, fixing I-26, fixing the bridge. There is a public hearing next Tuesday. The new maps are out. They're on the NCDOT website for I-26. So there's a public hearing on those maps on Tuesday. The DOT is going to be holding another public hearing early next year on the final environmental document. These are the last two public hearings that will happen on this project, and then they will be moving forward to signing the record of decision and letting the contract. So construction is actually slated to start or right-of-way acquisition slated to start in 2020 timeframe. So it's actually finally here. It's actually going to happen. People aren't going to die before it gets built. I mean, somebody will. But so
But I would leave early because traffic's probably gonna be heavy getting there.
Yeah, and I will say the DOT on the Bowen Bridge work, we got an update yesterday. They have now, they were doing it only in the evening. They have expanded those hours a little bit, so it's kind of encroaching into, not quite, it's encroaching into early evening now, because, they're behind schedule. So you might just wanna avoid that area at night, go another way.
Thanks, Julie. Any miscellaneous business? Deb, you got anything from Sports Commission or?
No, I
think got a bunch of stuff.
I just want you will get an invitation later today to each of you to attend our annual general meeting, which is next Tuesday at noon here. We'll kind of review the past year in sports and have some awards and some different things. And just kind of also will be, the new board members will be announced at that point. So just look forward to having any of you that would like to come next Tuesday. And again, thanks for all you guys did. Really appreciate it. Thanks for Stephanie for all of her support. So.
Thanks, Deb. Comments from the general public? Okay. Then thank you all for coming, and the meeting is adjourned.